So welcome. So a retired senior citizen and a very strong military veteran retires and he takes a job as a greeter in a Walmart, his local Walmart. You know, the gentleman with the little stickers and say hello and welcome folks. So he's working there for a couple of months and he's doing a great job. But one day the general manager calls him in and he sits him down and he says, you know, sir, he says, you are a great employee and we love you and you've been fantastic for the last couple of months. He says, but you're always late. And you know, we can't have that. He says, you were in the military, right? He goes, yes, sir, it was. He says, well, what do they say in the military when you showed up late every day? They said, good morning, General. How would you like your coffee today? Thank you. Okay, having said that, behind me you'll see the flag of Israel and the flag of the United States. And with that, I ask you all to please stand and face the American flag, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Those who have cover can hand salute. Those who don't, you can stand at attention or cover your heart. Look, there goes my yellow. Okay, there's from there. Present. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What up? Thank you. Cover back on. Just cover. All right. Please remain standing as I introduce the Rabbi, Jonathan Hausman, who is rabbi here at Ahavath Torah congregation. Rabbi Hausman, thank you. I will invite you all to sit, because when I asked Mike how long I had to speak, he said, Rabbi, however long you want. And you should all know that I'm a rabbi by profession, I'm a lawyer by educational training, which means I can have you all here for 2 hours before I even get warmed up. You know, I spoke this morning at a veterans event here in town. And my original thought was to share in its entirety what I said this morning. But there's a problem in that. Number one, somebody here might have heard me this morning, and number two, Stoughton Media Access is covering this event. So what I said this morning is already out there. So after the event this morning, I went home, and Mike, I have to tell you, there was one thing I did. I pulled up General Douglas MacArthur's farewell speech that he gave at West Point back in 1962. I'll be honest with you all, I commend it for your reading. It never fails to capture how MacArthur really elicited in verbal form gratitude to our veterans. Here this afternoon, it's sort of a mix. Because though this event to honor our Jewish war veterans brings us together, we certainly have the Israeli element and what the state of Israel means to us as American Jews and to Israel's veterans. As MacArthur was leaving his hotel that morning in May of 1962, the doorman asked him the following. He said, "Where are you bound for, General?" And MacArthur replied, "West Point." Doorman said, "It's a beautiful place. Have you ever been there before?" Has anyone here been to West Point? I used to go all the time when I was a kid. You see,
World War II. Honestly, until the day he died, that's all we knew about his service. Colonel, can you imagine that? He shared nothing with us. Like many people of your generation, came home, wanted to get on with life, end of business. He died almost 40 years ago. There was a drawer in his dresser we were never allowed to go into, under penalty of parental death. After he died, we opened the drawers. There were some odds and ends. As a Jewish family here in the United States, you knew you made it when you had enough money to buy your first set of encyclopedias. Those, all right? Who's ever laughing? This is a true story. Okay, in my house it was World Book. In the Barrett household it was the Encyclopedia Britannica. It didn't make a difference. That's how you knew you made middle class. Found a couple of other things. My paternal grandfather had this polished elk suit that was there. Some other odds and ends. And then we found Colonel and Colonel, because we have two colonels here with us today, with whom I'm personally friendly. We found 2 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and 2 Silver Clusters. Anyone who served, you know what that meant. You know what that means. And in terms of Purple Hearts, field medicine back in the early to mid-40s is not what it was, not what it's like today. We didn't know much of anything. We knew that I just missed the draft. My father used to say that the key to victory is the commitment to victory. And he wasn't so sure that the political leaders of this country would allow victory at that time. Vietnam was just really winding down. An ambassador, he said, if you're going to go fight, I'm sending you to Israel. Because there, people know what they're fighting for. And my family's relationship to Medinat Israel goes back to those dunes that became Tel Aviv. My grandmother had an uncle who was in that picture. Also had an uncle who died on the Altalena. The key to victory is the commitment to victory. Almost 40 years later, my youngest brother, who works down in Washington, D.C., with one of the federal agencies, decided to contact a friend of his who works over at the Department of Defense to do some research. It turns out that one of those silver clusters for meritorious service, my father earned in Cabanatuan. Anybody know of Cabanatuan? No. You all heard of the Bataan Death March? Those who survived the Bataan Death March were imprisoned in Cabanatuan. And of course, the Japanese visited all kinds of horrors on those survivors. January 30th, 1945. Because of a pledge to duty, honor, and country, 150 Army Rangers raided Cabanatuan to free the prisoners. If you talk to some of the retired military people today, flag officers, they will tell you that that way is still studied in the academies at West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, even the Coast Guard Academy as the perfect example of an event with perfect planning and perfect execution. My brother mentioned this, have you ever heard of Cabinet's one? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. I said, prisoners, U.S. prisoners, Allied prisoners, Bataan Death March. He said, did you know that Dad was one of those Army Rangers? We had no idea. He came back from the war, finished college on the GI Bill, took 3 years of law school in 2 to make sure that everything would accord with his benefits, practiced law in Jacksonville, moved back to Bridgeport when his father had a heart attack, met my mother, got married, 4 sons, raised a family. And not a word about his service other than the key to victory is commitment to victory. Those of you who are here this afternoon, you took an oath. If you've served in the U.S. military, you took an oath. And what was that oath? To protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You are still bound by that oath. Taken how many years ago? Colonel, for you, back in World War II. That's an oath you took, knowing that your service might lead to your death or to suffer horrible wounds. And you took that oath in defense of freedom, duty, honor, country. It's a punchline today for some. But for those of us with a connection to the military, it is not. They are hallowed words, reverentially dictated to us, speaking to us of what ought to be, what you can be, and most important, what you will be. Duty, honor, country. And their equivalent in Hebrew. I have 200 family members who reside in the state of Israel, almost all of whom who have served. These words are our rallying point to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, and to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. I will tell you that the unbelievers will say that these are just words, a slogan, a flamboyant phrase. Every pedant, every demagogue, every cynic, every hypocrite, every troublemaker, they'll try to downgrade duty, honor, and country
to the extent of mockery and ridicule and a punchline. But these words we preserve and we protect because we understand that they are the bedrock of our freedom. Preserved and protected by those who gave of themselves for service to this great nation, including those people who are still in service today. And so, as I concluded this morning, I will conclude this afternoon. Let us pay our debt to those who have served, in part by remembering and honoring and keeping faith and not breaking faith with veterans by ensuring that the promises made to them are kept today, tomorrow, and henceforth. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
Wow. Thank you, Reverend. So officially, I'd like to welcome everybody to this program, Jewish War Veterans, and a salute to all veterans, those that have served, those that are serving, and those that will volunteer and serve this great nation. And having said that, our first speaker is going to be an audio speaker. It's Congressman Jake Oshentloss, 4th Congressional District, serving since 2021. You know, I'm sorry, I forgot. Before you go there, I forgot. I'm Major Michael Fish. I didn't introduce myself. I'm assuming you all know me. But Major Michael Fish. The uniform I'm wearing is the Ancient Ornamental Artillery Company of Massachusetts. It's the oldest chartered military organization in the country, 1645. We're the first military in the United States. We have some representatives, Captain Commanding, past captain. I will introduce them in a little bit. But that is the uniform I'm wearing. And thank you for allowing me to be your MC here today. Now, I'm sorry, let me go back into, so Congressman Jake Oshentloss, 4th Congressional District, serving since 2021, a graduate of Harvard University and MIT, a United States Marine Corps major who served in Afghanistan and is currently IRR, Individual Ready Reserve. Ladies and gentlemen, an audio from Congressman Jake Oshentloss, please.
Thank you to the Israeli Consulate General to New England for hosting a special Veterans Day event for Jewish veterans. I'm a Jewish Marine and a grandson of a Jewish Marine. Jewish values of service, sacrifice, and the pursuit of justice helped inspire my service, and I know it did for so many others. And it continues to motivate my commitment to supporting veterans to this day.
Thank you. This Jewish War Veterans event is hosted by the Consulate General to Israel for New England, Ambassador Meron Rubin, who we will introduce to you in a moment. And we thank you, Meron, Ambassador, for allowing this program to happen. It's very, very important. Thank you. So now I will do my introduction of the ambassador. So Ambassador Rubin has a diplomatic career spanning 3 decades. He has served in various positions in Chile, Mexico, Paraguay, Bolivia, Colombia. Ambassador Rubin served as the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations as Israel's chief state protocol officer. We now welcome, he's currently now our Consul General to Israel for New England. We now welcome and are blessed to have his service to Boston and New England. Ladies and gentlemen, our host and great supporter of veterans and veterans' concerns, Ambassador Meron Rubin.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't know how it will be to come after that wonderful speech, Rabbi, and we didn't even applaud you, so I would like to applaud the Rabbi's speech now. I'm feeling a little bit at a loss of words. But as the rabbi knows, Israelis are very difficult when it comes to loss of words. How not to. So yes, I'm really delighted to be with you here in person today. It's not often that in my 11 months here I've had the possibility to enjoy in-person meetings, and I thank you all for braving the COVID and coming and joining us here in this very important event. This past year, as I said, has meant that I haven't really been able to get out and meet and greet, and as the rabbi knows, and I think the people in the military know, these are jobs that you need to be out in the field. And this is something that diplomats are finding very difficult to get used to. But there is one good thing about Zoom meetings, even though I'm zoomed out, and that is that you always have a second chance to make a first impression. Because you can make a first impression on Zoom, and then when you meet somebody in 3 dimensions, you can actually make a first impression once again. So that's about the only plus that I do see in Zoom, though it's going to be with us for, I think, the rest of our lives, because it has done some good, and it has enabled people who cannot get to events to partake in them, and I think that this is very, very important. And it's wonderful to be able to meet members of the community. I would have most probably been out and about and met you sooner, but this is also very good. I also want to thank everybody for coming here today, because the Consulate General of Israel to New England is really honored to pause and to recognize the veterans in the greater community of this Veterans Day. I recognize that this day has a lot of meaning, not only for you, but for us as well. And why, you say, would Israel want to honor US veterans? But as personal as the day is for you, it is also for us. It's been very interesting to see and to focus in on what veterans mean, but veterans for us, I only really, when trying to think about today, realized that the majority of Israelis, as the rabbi mentioned, are veterans. I am actually myself a veteran, and my daughters will be veterans. So this is something that we sort of take for granted, and when in the speeches today I heard that only 1% of, less than 1% of the population of the United States are veterans, and in Israel it's over 70% of the population of the country are veterans, there is a big difference and dichotomy, and I think that this is where one feels the difference. US veterans of World War II volunteered to fight for Israel's War of Independence in 1948. And the military expertise of these veterans, these American veterans, contributed greatly to the freedom of the State of Israel today. And for that we are eternally grateful. And for that we have to forever thank the veterans of the United States. And as we all know, the United States is our greatest ally. And we are grateful for everybody, and that is why we include, of course, the veterans here today. I'm also truly honored to have amongst us today, now that you have a kippah on, I'm including you in the Jewish faith. And that is, of course, Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse of the Tuskegee Airmen. And all I heard Woody, if I may use your nickname, speak today impromptu with the Governor Baker this morning, and I have to say that may we all be like you when we get to your young age of 95. Wow. traffic controller for the Air Force. So we share an affinity, Woody and I, both being in the Air Force. As I mentioned, my youngest daughter is currently serving in a combat unit along the Israeli-Egyptian border. She digs foxholes in the army and then comes home and puts on makeup in the evening and goes out. So I presume that that is modern combat for you. Even though we do have much in common with the US, we are different in that we are surrounded by hostile states, and in fact, it's changed a lot over the years. Not only are we surrounded, I think we must be one of the only states where we are surrounded by non-state actors. This is something that doesn't really happen, where we confront not states always across our borders, but non-state actors across our borders. And this makes, I think, the difficulty of how to face new kinds of warfare. But this is not what we are here for, and we are here to honor the men and women of the United States, brave men who enlisted willingly and were shipped off to every corner of the earth to defend and protect shared values of freedom, the same as the Judeo-Christian values that we in Israel share with the United States. On a personal note, as a Jewish veteran for the state of Israel, I didn't think of it like that, but now I am. I'm very pleased to find out that the Jewish American War Veterans is actually the oldest active veteran service organization in America. It's great to see Jewish war veterans continuing to serve this country as its politicians, its community leaders, and as we have heard from Representative Jake Alden. I'd like to thank Major Michael Fish, a veteran and a 9/11 hero that was not mentioned, for acting as host today. I've had the honor of spending time with Major Fish and his capacity as a member of the Ancient and Honorables. We are proud at the consulate to know you, Major Fish. We'd also like to thank you, Rabbi Jonathan Hausman and Ahavath Torah, for allowing us to use this beautiful synagogue today for this event. And we are really, truly grateful. Another thing that was mentioned today in the service was the fact, not only that why is Veterans Day celebrated today, because it used to be Armistice Day of World War I, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, but in the service this morning they talked of unknown soldiers. And then all of a sudden I realized that Israel actually doesn't have a tomb to the unknown soldier, because we do not have unknown soldiers. We might have soldiers whose places of burial are not known, but every soldier in the state of Israel has a name. And that is what is really differentiates us, I think, from other countries. If you have not been to Israel in the last 3 years, you most probably haven't seen a new memorial to all the nearly 25,000 people killed in the last 160 years, because we include all those who have been killed in terrorist activities along the decades and along the 160 years as fallen for the state of Israel. It is a new building on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, in the entrance to the military cemetery, and it is built with the names of absolutely every person who has died since the 1860s for the state of Israel. And it is something that I suggest that when you do get to Israel, you do go and see the memorial, because it really is quite fantastic. And I really would like to once again thank you all for your service to freedom and democracy, not only for the United States, but all around the world, and to your friends around the world. And I'm really honored that we could recognize you here today, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Our next speaker, unfortunately, was not able to make it. Something had come up, but I just wanted to let you know that Ira Novoleski, who was the former commander of the Jewish war vets, was scheduled to speak, and I apologize that he's not here. He's very sorry he could not attend. Thank you. Okay. Just gotta get myself together here. Here we go. All right. I would now call to the podium. I'm going to introduce you to Colonel Retired Julie Hall of the United States Air Force. She's a veteran, a patriot, a proud mother, a decorated officer who served as Chief Medical Operating Officer in Korea and the Gulf War, and she served as City Councilwoman in Attleboro, Massachusetts. And it's my pleasure to introduce Colonel Retired Julie Hall.
It's an honor to be here. And everywhere along our careers, I think we get the opportunity where we get a little voice that whispers in our ears and it says, atone. And I think when I'm with my veterans, I'm the most comfortable. I feel that I can tell them anything. And so this is a story that I don't think I've ever told to anyone. And I do feel comfortable here, so I'm going to tell you today. When I went into basic training in 1978, I thought, this is great. As a female, I was a hero, because there weren't many women that went in. And then I remembered when this day came along, I went in on the buddy system. And my buddy was a young lady named Allison Elenoff. Allison Elenoff from Randolph, Massachusetts. And we went in together, we did everything together, until we went to basic training. And then all of a sudden, it seemed to be that there was some difference between her being Jewish and my being Catholic. And I did never understand that until as I got older, and I learned, hey, things weren't always the same. So I tried very hard, as I went through my career, to understand those kinds of things did happen. We never, I don't think either of us, at least I didn't, but I realized that she did not have the same experience in her military career that I did, and I often wondered, was it because of her religion? And I know the answer. So I made a point that when I became a leader in the United States Air Force, when I became a colonel, and I was commander twice, that I would do my absolutely very best, and I stand by this, and I'm proud of this, to make sure that anybody that served with me, and I say with me, not under me, they served with me, was treated with the utmost respect, that I was fair and honorable to all of those that served with me. So again, I think that's my speech for today. I want to acknowledge that we have all had our difficulties. I had a difficulty as a woman. But again, I never thought that this young lady in 1978, who was my friend, also had an even harder difficulty just because of her religion. So I'm here to tell you, I hope that anybody that has served with me can say that she was an honorable leader and that she was fair and honest, because I think that is more than anything else. I don't care what my rank is. I just wanted to be a good leader to people. And that's really the message that I want to leave with all of you. We take care of each other. We're veterans. And again, I thank you for allowing me, and I'll use the word atone, for allowing me to understand that. And because of my friend Allison, I became a much better leader to our United States military. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day to all of you.
Our next speaker is going to represent Colonel Cheryl Poppy, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I had the privilege of serving with the Colonel in the Guard, and a very, very wonderful Secretary of Veterans Affairs, new to the office. She got to speak this morning at Faneuil Hall, and I'm sorry she's not here, but she had prior commitments, but she has sent her general counsel to represent her. So I would like to introduce Mr. Matthew Deacon from the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know Colonel Poppy is sorry that she couldn't make it today, and I apologize. You got shortchanged twice, because not only did you not get Colonel Poppy, I only made it to the rank of Major in the Air Force, so there's that. And she sent me as the lawyer, so apologize twice for that. But
And I apologize for not introducing you as Major.
that's okay.
JAG officer.
Yep, I was a JAG officer in the United States Air Force, and I now serve as General Counsel for the Department of Veterans Services. Prior to being at the Department of Veterans Services, I will say I served as General Counsel for the Chelsea Soldiers Home, and one of the things that really opened my heart was seeing the Jewish war veterans and the good work that they did at the Chelsea Soldiers Home. And I know we had talked earlier about being caught in Zoom world, and now we're all kind of emerging from this cocoon. I'm so happy that the Jewish war veterans are resuming their mission at the Chelsea Soldiers Home and serving veterans there. It's truly inspiring, and the work that they do truly inspires me. I also want to say that I'm truly inspired by the words that Rabbi had earlier. I was just thinking to myself, I made the oath to defend the Constitution on May 22nd, 2009. And I think it's telling that most veterans that you ask, they remember the day that they took that oath. And at the Department of Veterans Services, even though I'm not wearing the uniform anymore, we are trying to honor that commitment by providing veterans of the Commonwealth with honor, dignity, and the respect that they deserve. So thank you very much, and again, Colonel Poppy is sorry she couldn't be here today. It's a very busy time, but we thought it important to come and say our thank yous to the Jewish war veterans, and to say thank you to Colonel Woodhouse for being an inspiration to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Now, I get to read you a veteran's poem. I know you've all been anxiously waiting for this, so I will begin. He was getting old and punchy, and his hair was falling fast. And he sat around the Legion telling stories of the past, of a war that he once fought in, and the deeds that he had done. In his exploits with his buddies, they were heroes, every one. And though sometimes to his neighbors, his tales became a joke, while his buddies listened quietly, for they knew whereof he spoke. But we'll hear his tales no longer, for old Joe has passed away, and the world's a little poorer, for a veteran died today. He won't be mourned by many, just as children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary, very quiet sort of life. He held a job to raise a family, going quietly on his way. And the world won't notice passing, though a veteran died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state, while thousands note their passing and proclaim that they were great. Papers tell of their life stories from the time that they were young, but the passing of a veteran goes unnoticed and unsung. Is the greatest contribution to the welfare of our land someone who breaks his promise to his fellow man, or the ordinary fellow who in times of war and strife goes off to serve his country and offers up his life? The politician's stipend and the style in which he lives are often disproportionate to the service that he gives, while the ordinary veteran who offered up his all is paid off with a medal or perhaps a pension small. It is not the politicians with their compromised employees who won for us the freedom that our country now enjoys. Should you find yourself in danger with your enemies at hand, would you really want some empty promise with ever-waffling stand? Or would you want a veteran, his home, his country, his kin, just a common veteran who would fight until the end? He was just a common veteran, and his ranks are growing thin, but his presence should remind us we may need his lights again. For when countries are in conflict, we find the veteran's part is to clean up all the troubles, forgive me, that the politicians start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear praise, then at least let's give him homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline in the paper that might say, "Our country is in mourning. A veteran died today." Thank you on that. All right. Now, would you listen to poetry? By the way, that was anonymous. We don't know who wrote that. At this time, we had a main speaker that you've heard a lot about, and I'm going to introduce him. So just sit for 1 second. Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woody, affectionately known Woodhouse, Esquire. Now, 95, because I thought you was 94. Did I miss your birthday? I did miss your birthday. I think, didn't I?
94.
Yeah, you're 94, turning 94. That's right. Okay. All right. It's okay, it doesn't matter. 94, 95, God bless you, you're still here. All right. A Boston resident, raised in Roxbury. His mother encouraged Woody. Pearl Harbor attacks. His mother encouraged Woody at 17 to join the service, and he did. He enlisted in the Army Air Corps in 1944 at 17 years of age. Served as paymaster, also known as finance officer, to the Tuskegee Airmen 1946 to 1948. Blacks at that time were relegated to service functions only, enlisted. Blacks began to go to flight training in Tuskegee, Alabama, of course under segregated conditions, shameful, but under segregated conditions. Now, a proud member of the Tuskegee Airmen with many accomplishments, he joined the Air Force Reserve in 1949, where he was commissioned and remained in service to our country. In 1952, he graduated Yale University and then graduated BU School of Law. A successful Boston attorney, a U.S. State Department attorney, a U.S. diplomat, he was a member of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps with 40-plus years of service. He's the recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal presented by President George W. Bush. He retired as a lieutenant colonel and now a prominent member of the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts, which is, this uniform is representing. We'll acknowledge in a moment after our guest speaker. My dearest of friends, I'm proud to present Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woody Woodhouse, Esquire.
Rabbi Housen, Mr. Ambassador, Captain-elect, members of the congregation, and friends. Today is a very special day for me because this is the day that I share in common with all veterans. See my friend Captain Weinberg over there. Don't hide from me. We are all today to celebrate all veterans, all members that have served in all armed forces. Now we are peculiarly situated here because we have the Israeli ambassador, and we know how the state of Israel has fought, continues to fight, and will fight for its very existence. That is a model for all of us. Of course, my great model for the greatest Israeli soldier was Moshe Dayan, whom I had the pleasure to meet. The other one was Kirk Douglas, the movie of Exodus. I have to be very honest. I will not be political. I will be factual, and I will speak from here. You know, there's one thing that the Jewish soldier, not the Israeli soldier, but the Jewish soldier had in common with the black soldier was they were not too politically wealthy. They did not get everything they deserved. Is that unusual? What are the facts about that? The inventor of the nuclear submarine. Does everybody know about him?
Yep.
Harmon Rickover. Do you know his middle initial? S. Here's a man that was ahead of his time. And I followed his career very closely, as I have with some of my other black brethren. That in America, we don't always get what is warranted and what we deserve. But that does not deter us from persevering. Why do I say that? Now, all of us here in our lives, we have various generations. I don't think there's one woman here over 39. Excuse me, Rabbi, for exaggerating this place. We all have a date in mind that sticks with us forever. My generation was December 7th, 1941, the day of Pearl Harbor. Subsequent generation will have the assassination of Kennedy. The new people have the date of 9/11. Those are dates that we remember burnished in our memories. Now, the reason December 7th was important to me, not because of Pearl Harbor, but when we heard President Roosevelt declare that December 7th will be a day of infamy, my mother pointed her fingers to her two boys, all she had in the world. She said to us, boys, America is at war. I want you to serve your country.
Can you imagine a black woman saying that to all she had in the world, her 2 boys, to serve a country where they could be lynched, where they could be stoned? I don't mean not denied a job. I mean putting their life to save a country that did not value their life or their profession or their duties. Now, Mike mentioned the fact how blacks were relegated to service functions. Now, I would take that personally, but I can't because the zeitgeist of America in the 40s, where a officer being groomed for his star prepared the momentous study for the ICAP, or the National Defense College. That's the finishing school for all the generals. This is where they get their tickets punched. He wrote a fantastic study that every Southern gentleman wanted and revered and respected. It went something like this. Blacks are shiftless. They are not to be trusted. They cannot accept responsibilities. They lack physical prowess. Can you imagine that with all the quarterbacks we have today? But this was a study, the zeitgeist. Rabbi, you know what we mean by the zeitgeist. Explain that another time. But that was the thinking of the average, good, white American. Can't fall for that. I can't change what they feel. I can't change their attitude towards me or my people. But time works in the so-called art of justice. In common parlance, that means what goes around comes around. You reap what you sow. You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. That, I believe, is where we are heading in America today. Now, what about the Jewish veteran in World War II? He couldn't wear his dog tags in Germany. Does everyone know why? I think you know why in the pink shirt. You're nodding. You've been around.
Yeah.
They couldn't wear their dog tags because the dog tags in World War II, you had your religion on them. You had 3 religions: Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish. Now, a Jew caught as a prisoner with the Holocaust, you know his fate. We know his fate. So there were Jewish war veterans fighting to defend their country without their identity, without their religion. And with Judaism, as I know you were talking about, Encyclopedia Britannica, I've been familiar with the Encyclopedia Judaica. Am I right, Rabbi? Back me up? Back me up? These factors that are not too pleasant to mention, but they must be mentioned. They must be brought continuously before America and before the world. Because what happened before can happen again. Doesn't that make sense? What someone did yesterday is more than likely they'll do the same tomorrow if you let them. Now, I've been invited, and I'm going to follow up on a trip to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And I was invited when some professor at Harvard knew that I was doing a research for 5 or 6 years on the fate of 40,000 black people that perished in Germany under Hitler. 40,000 blacks in Germany, how did that be? Very simple. The Berlin Conference in 1880-something, that was the so-called Scramble for Africa. All of the European countries under the direction of Bismarck all met to say, what part of Africa they want. The Scramble for Africa. British took the most, French took what's left, and the Germans got the latest thing. Now, the Germans got, which was Togo, Zimbabwe, German South Africa, German Southwest Africa, and a few other small areas. Now, when Germany lost the First World War, Britain and France took them over. The fancy word was mandate. In other words, they just took them over. Well, the Askaris, the black soldiers, under the German colonial office, when Germany lost the war, in good Germans, they repatriated to their fatherland with their German passports. Well, a man came to power around 1929. In 1930, he assumed the chancellorship. So their passports were suddenly no good. They had no passports. They were stateless in Germany. Now, what happened to them? Well, 3 ways. Their problem was solved. The first was sterilization. All mischlingers, or mixed kids, the females were summarily sterilized without anesthesia. Without anesthesia. These are all facts. If you can read German, the title of the book is Die Rheinland der Bastard. Okay. The Rheinland Bastards. Sterilization 1. The second was disappearance. Disappearance. And the third was outright elimination. An SS officer saw you, or would see me on the street, did dispose of me with a luca, a knife, tossed me in the river. Now, the Germans, any German people here? Shut up, you're a Marine. The third was assassination on the spot. Now, the Germans were very brutal, but one thing about them, they were meticulous record keepers. They kept the record on you when you took out your gold teeth or your glasses, written down. Now, to atone for that, and that's a very sacred word, atonement. We want people to atone. Just admit, just fess up that what you did was wrong. Now in Berlin today, they have Stolpersteins. Stolpersteins. Those are stones of remembrance. So when you walk around Berlin, in certain quarters, you see these little mounds of stone. They're not gold, but they're yellow painted. I'm not going to be fooled. They say they're gold, but they're yellow painted. And this was the way Germany atoned. Austria recently, within the past week, has posted an engraved wall of names, a wall of remembrance that we have done for our soldiers killed in Korea and Vietnam. We have to remember them. So where does that leave us today in America? We still have people that are willing to sacrifice for this dream of America. You know, it is a dream. Sometimes it's filled with nightmares and horror beginnings and fantastic endings. But we all should persevere and see the thing to the end. But the end doesn't come. We have a progression of changes which are mostly for the better. For us that have the disadvantage of not being recognized or being denied promotions, that should not deter any of us. The best solution for that, when you don't feel that you're given your promotion or you're given your due worth, and I'm not talking about affairs of the heart, that's on your own business. I can't help you there. The best thing that I've found to work is one word: excellent. Excellent. If you're the best person, if you're the best quarterback, if you're the best violinist, how about Isaac Stern and Itzhak Perlman? Have anyone heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me know that you heard of them. And one of the greatest things that I've heard is Bach's double violin concerto with the two brothers, father and son. Father and son. To see father and son.
Oyster,
Pardon?
David Oyster.
David Oyster. David
Igor.
Oyster. Who's the son? Igor?
Igor.
Igor. Thank you. You're a woman of culture.
Thank you.
Why do I bring in music whenever I'm talking about this race business? Because all you have to look at the piano and see the color of the keys. I haven't ever seen an all white key piano. I haven't seen it all black. I mean, if you had that, you would be able to finger properly. To take away in diversity, there is benefit. There is possibilities of ameliorating the situation that we found ourselves in. Now, I would be remiss, and as a lawyer, as a father, as a son and grandson of Methodist ministers, Protestants, religion is our family business, and I respect being at this sacred place of learning, a sacred place of faith. But I have to share with you experience with two of my dearest friends, George and Maggie. Just raise your hand to it. Now, why do I single her out? The devil with him. I'm saying- I've had a few saviors in my life, but this, she prepares the real deal, Rabbi. The real deal. 3 hours. All the courses, all of the verses canon. I've got to close, but I couldn't close without acknowledging or pointing out or exposing Mike Fish. Now, everybody, take a word from me. If ever Mike approaches you, if ever he asks you to do a favor, if he asks you, can I have a minute of your time, run. Hold on to your pocketbook. Mike, I love you.
I love you too, brother. Thank you.
Are there any Marines present today? Stand up. I thought you were shot. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
All right, there's another Marine. Sit down now. You'll expose yourself tonight. Rabbi, it's been an honor to occupy this sacred place, and I am deeply humbled and inspired. You know, the award I got from the governor was not something I had done fantastically. It is not something that I have performed for the corporate level. It is nothing that I have contributed to the medical field. It was an award for community engagement. Community engagement. That means just being a nice person. Just doing your best. And as the rabbi said, a mensch. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Just a little bit more. We're almost there. So I want to acknowledge some folks that are here in the audience that will not be taking the podium, but they are. We're blessed to have them in our audience. First, I just want to introduce the president of the Havathora congregation. As Woody said, this is a wonderful, blessed venue, and thank you for allowing us. President Bob Bornstein. Spoke behind me. Bob Bornstein. And of course, Rabbi Jonathan Hausman, the rabbi for the temple. I want to introduce the captain commanding of the Ancient Honorable Artillery Company, Captain Robert Imlach. One of our illustrious past captain commanders of the Ancient Honorable Artillery Company, Captain George Morrison. And we have a congressman present. I'm sorry we're so long in time. You are welcome to come up if you want to give a quick, but please stand. Congressman of the 4th Congressional District.
Representative, thank you for the
Oh, state representative, that's not a congressman.
Representative.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, congratulations. You're now a congressman. All right. State Representative Stephen Howard. And if there's anybody that I didn't acknowledge, I apologize. I want to acknowledge all veterans, and I want to acknowledge veterans' families, because without the veterans' families and the support of veterans, we have nothing. And I also want to acknowledge a happy birthday to a certain captain, a naval captain, Oh my God.
Weinberg.
What? I'm sorry.
Weinberg.
Harvey Weinberg. No, I got it. Harvey Weinberg. Fellow ancient and honorable. Thank you. I'm sorry. My God, my head is. So, all right. Having done that, if you look here, you see a pot of yellow roses. These roses are in tribute to those veterans who are not here, those veterans who are here. We've lost in the past so many veterans. So this is in tribute to them. And at the end of the ceremony, those that wish to take a flower in memory of their loved ones, please come and take a flower. But before we conclude, I have an audio statement from a daughter of a former colonel, United States military, and with that, please.
Thank you all for being here today at this very meaningful event, honoring the service of New England veterans of the United States Armed Forces. My name is Ruth Kaplan, and it's my great honor to serve as the Director of Community Relations at the Consulate General of Israel to New England. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you all in person, but I wish to share with you a bit of my own family history of which I am so proud. You see, my late father, Judge Summers B. Kaplan, rose to the rank of colonel while serving overseas in the Army Corps of Engineers during World War II. As a veteran of World War II, he continued his military service in the Army Reserves, rising eventually to the rank of Brigadier General, one of a small number of Jews to achieve this status. In addition to his political life as both a state representative from Brookline and member of its select board, he understood the importance of serving our country and became a role model of commitment and sacrifice. The son of an immigrant father, he loved the United States and did all he could to defend our freedoms. A proud Jew, my father became the deputy commander of the Jewish War Veterans Post in Brookline and spoke frequently to local school children about American values and military service throughout his career. My dad was also an ardent Zionist. He was so proud to have as one of his best friends a law school classmate named Harold Katz, who was a naval veteran of World War II, volunteered to help rescue Jewish refugees from Europe in clandestine naval operations aimed at evading the British in the late 1940s, in what would soon become the State of Israel. Indeed, thousands of American World War II vets volunteered to fight alongside Israeli forces in the 1948 War of Independence. Known as MAFO, American pilots who had only recently completed their military service in World War II, played a particularly important role in the formation of the Israeli Air Force. My father's favorite quote from Rabbi Hillel is the following: "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" I think this is the perfect quotation to describe veterans. They have chosen to do something for the greater good, both in and out of uniform, and abide by a higher ethical code. And they don't hesitate to take action to do the right thing. So let us honor our veterans and particularly cherish the memories of our departed loved ones who are no longer with us but who will never be forgotten. Let these beautiful yellow roses remind us of their legacies and greatness always. Feel free to take these flowers with you after the ceremony concludes to honor your departed loved ones. Once again, thank you so much for affording me this opportunity to honor my late father, Senator Kaplan, a U.S. veteran who will always be my hero.
Thank you. And following that, we will have our final prayers. You get to hear Rabbi Hausman again. Are you ready, Rabbi? There you go. Thank you.
I was going to say that.
We honor the service and sacrifice today that those who have granted toward our country. And we all must remember that we have to carry it forward for their honor, for our honor, and for our children's honor. Today is for remembering, to stand in honor of the men and women who have served this country, to walk in their paths of duty, to remember the cost, and to hold in all of our hearts the cause of freedom for us, for this country, and for the world. And we say, Amen.
I want to acknowledge, before we go and dine, I want to acknowledge the staff of the ambassador who spent some time, hard work on setting up this event. There's Annie over there. Before the speakers go to dine, stand fast because the Consular General would like to present some gifts to you, which we have under here. So don't run away to eat. And I want to thank everybody for coming again. Happy Veterans Day to all out there in TV land, because we are live streaming. And at this time, I say thank you again. We are done, and it is time to eat. And bless you all. Thank you.